All right, Jase, I want to start in December of 1994. You win the International Shotokan Karate Federation National Championship at 11 years old. And you are, at least with the local newspaper, branded a prodigy at 11 years old. I guess that was the second year in a row you'd won your age group. Your parents own the dojo. Obviously, you've been around it your entire life. But did you enjoy it? I mean, was it just sort of your environment and you took part in it because it was around you all the time, or was karate something that you really liked?
First off, that's incredible that you found that, because a lot of my history people can't find when it comes to that. And I'm going to give you all the credit in the world for finding that. You're the first person who has brought that up to me. I mean, people know a little bit about my background, but you're the first person who's brought that up to me. So I'm going to give you all the credit,
I will take it.
Yeah.
I will take it.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it. I started when I was 3. I was basically born in a dojo. Like you said, my mom and dad brought me up in it, and it really molded me as to who I am now. Because even at a young age, I would sit there and watch my dad and my mom teach people that were their age or older than them. And so it really taught me, from the time I was 3 and on, how to be a leader. And so, it was almost like I was a natural born leader, because I was around it so much. I watched my dad and mom 6 days a week lead people. And so, but I had a lot of fun doing that. I wouldn't trade my childhood for anything. I'd come home from school, do my homework real quick, and get to the dojo and start working. And then I'd stay there all night until my parents were done teaching. And then we'd go home, eat dinner at 9 o'clock or whatever, and go to bed. And, it's time to go to school the next day. So and I wouldn't change that for anything. I'm forever indebted to my parents for putting me in that situation, because it's made me who I am today. It taught me discipline. It taught me, probably more so than anything, it taught me how to have spirit. I pride myself on having the most spirit in any room, regardless if it's basketball, karate, martial arts, whatever, baseball, anything. I played a bunch of sports when I was growing up, and, this is a long-winded answer, but like, that's authentically like who I am. I don't even know if authentically is a word, but like, that's that's who I am, and so my parents always told me, you might not be the fastest, quickest, strongest, but you better have the most spirit. And so they constantly pushed me. And fortunate for me is like, I almost kind of grew up like a coach's son, really, in a lot of ways. Cause when I went home, it was the same deal, so, but yeah, I loved it. And, my kid is 18 months right now, and I can guarantee you he's going to be doing the same thing I did.
Around that time, you were a ball boy at Arizona State, if my research is correct. So when did the basketball bug bite you?
You are really good.
I'm trying, baby. I'm trying.
So I was a ball boy. I was a ball boy at ASU, and I loved going to basketball camp in the summer. And my parents always, it wasn't like they made me choose one sport or another. They wanted me to do a bunch of different things, and they knew I really liked basketball. And I remember going to my first basketball game. It sounds kind of crazy, but I think it was 88. When Kevin Johnson got traded from the Cleveland Cavaliers to the Phoenix Suns, my parents took me to my first game. I guess I was probably 5. And the thing I liked the most was the Phoenix Suns gorilla. So I wanted to go back. And so I just kept going back, or my parents just kept taking me back. And so then I fell in love with basketball at, that age, also with martial arts. And so I was doing both. And, KJ and Tom Chambers and Jeff Hornacek and all those guys, like, Mark West. I mean, that's kind of where my love for basketball started. Then I became a ball boy at ASU, and it was really great. Like those coaches treated me great. The players treated me great when I was a ball boy. And I really enjoyed it. I got to sit behind the ASU bench a lot and interact with the players and the coaches. And the managers, and I still try and stay in touch with some of those guys, as much as I can now that I'm all grown up, so, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. I had a great time doing that.
Your high school career, played at Mesquite High School for a guy named Sam Dwayne, who I know was a part of your journey as you went. But as a player for him, what was maybe the biggest lesson you were able to take from him that I'm sure somewhere it may not be buried that deep inside you right now, but it's something that you still use today?
No, I mean, he's forever been one of my role models. He took my thinking about basketball to a whole nother level. He taught me about basketball. Like, when I was a player, I kind of, before I played for him, I kind of just played basketball, and I was just a talented kid. I mean, 7th, 8th grade, whatever. I was a talented kid who could, shoot, pass, dribble, whole thing. And, but he helped me understand how to play basketball. And we still do some drills, here at Portland State that I learned from him 20 plus years ago. And, he taught me a lot, and then the other thing too is like I said, I was a real spirited person. And the thing that I really owe him is he helped me channel my spirit, in the right ways. And so, I really learned a lot from him, and he's still one of my role models to this day. And I talk to him still, and yeah, he's been insanely a good basketball coach. Like, he's insanely good. He's done a lot at the schools he's been at, and fortunate enough for me, he got me started in coaching because I graduated high school and our JV coach had went overseas on a vacation during the summer. And so he asked me to coach the JV team during the summer. And so I did it. And that's where I fell in love with coaching. I was like, man, like, I knew as a player, I probably wasn't going that far. And so I was like, man, I really like this. So, and then I ended up coaching for him after college at Corona del Sol. And so, yeah, I owe a lot to him.
Coaching never crossed your mind until sort of that opportunity, or was it maybe just?
I actually, like, he was the one who introduced me to it and gave me the opportunity and chance to actually do it. Leading up to then, I always wanted to be a coach, but I had never done it before.
Right.
So like, even when I was a young guy, like most kids played with like toys and stuff. Like when they were kids, I played with basketball cards. Like, I would organize the cards in like lineups and depth charts and things like that. Before depth charts even became popular, I was like a 8-9-year-old kid lining up depth charts on every NBA team. Like, I knew every player and I knew their stats and the whole thing. And so, I always knew that I wanted to be, involved, and then, like I said, watching my parents lead, and I just knew, like, from an early age that I wanted to be a coach at some point.
Talk to me about the process of somehow getting involved with AAU teams and coaching AAU teams, and at 18, 19, 20, and driving kids across state lines at that age. How do we get to that point? And how many, I don't even know, not as much, how many permission slips do we need signed from parents to give you the trust to start taking their kids far, far away?
I really believe that, like, as I'm getting older, I'm really starting to understand, like, how indebted I am to people. Because if those parents would have never let me take their kids, like you said, across state lines to basketball tournaments as an 18, 19, 20-year-old guy.
To Las Vegas as one of the stops, correct?
Yeah, Las Vegas, LA. I mean, we were all over the place. With Houston, I mean, we were all over the place. And so, but it started, with those guys that I coached as JV players. And so, I coached them in the summer, and then it carried into next summer. And it just kept evolving. And then it turned into this really big thing. And then all of a sudden I had like 5 teams going at one time. And I was just a 20-year-old guy. I couldn't even buy a drink then. Like, I didn't know what, was going on, but those parents really trusted me. So I owe a lot to them too, because that really kickstarted my career. And that's how I met a lot of college coaches. And then all of a sudden it turned into like, man, like I want to be a college coach. Like, so yeah, it was a great opportunity, great experience. I mean, I really learned how to do everything because I recruited kids to our team. I had to go out there and fundraise and get money because, these other teams, had all this funding. And then, I even took a class in college to figure out how to create a website. So I like created my own website. Like I ordered the uniforms, I designed the uniforms, I washed the uniforms, I drove the vans, I coached the game. One time, here's a quick deal. One time, I coached like 11 games in a row one day. I coached 11 in a row. So my dad ran AU basketball tournaments in Arizona at the time. And so we were talking, and it was like trying to figure out how am I going to coach. I think I had like 3 or 4 teams. How am I going to coach my teams the whole way through this day? Because like I'm not going to be able to do it. So I coached 11 basketball games in a row one day. And so I didn't, I didn't eat anything, I don't think, or maybe I had a snack or something. I don't know. But like that was definitely one of the hardest things I've had to do as a coach. But I like helping people. So like, those kids all wanted to play basketball. So yeah, I was going to give my best effort for 11 hours straight, like, and so yeah, it was a lot of fun.
One of the articles I read about your parents, that they had the dojo, but they were also real estate agents by day. And there was, I think one of the reporters asked you about your plans, and it was sort of a even just reading it, you were like, well, I'm thinking about maybe going into real estate. But almost just reading it, I didn't believe you at all. Was there any chance real estate was in the cards for you, or was that maybe just, hey, maybe that's the day job, and then the night job will ultimately be not knowing where this is going to go for me? That I've got a way to make some money, because certainly this coaching stuff, especially in the early years, can be very much a starving artist business.
For sure. So what happened was, I can't remember how old I was or what. I was really young, and my parents, like you said, were both in real estate during the day, and they taught at the dojo at night. I mean, going back to the 11-hour thing, like games, like my parents worked all day long, and then after they worked, they taught at night. So like that's all I knew. I knew you're just supposed to work all day long. So they made me get my real estate license when I was really young. I forgot what the age is, but like whatever the age was or what year it was, whenever I was like legally able to do it, I had to go to real estate school and during the summer. So I was like in college, I think. And during the summer, I was sitting in real estate classes. And so they always encouraged me to have that. And I still actually do, so, but when I was like 23, I was at a crossroads. I was like, okay, I'm coaching at Phoenix College and I'm graduating from Arizona State. So like, I need to figure something out to pay the bills. Like, my little stipend check over here at Phoenix College ain't going to pay the bills. So I, was thinking, okay, well, I'm going to get into real estate. Well, a couple high school jobs popped open. And so I applied for a couple high school jobs, and I didn't get them. And, I was 23. So, I'm sure that had a factor in it, maybe, or whatever. Maybe they just had better candidates. I don't know. But then I got my chance. I got my chance at McClintock High School, and Kim Hilgers, another person I'm indebted to forever, took a chance on a 23-year-old guy to coach one of the best high schools in Arizona. And so, so once that happened, I dropped the real estate thing. I just decided, what, I'm just going to keep my license for the rest of my life, because it was really hard to get it because I don't know, studying for something that you didn't really want to do and you just want to coach basketball is really hard. So it was definitely a struggle to do it and get it, because I wasn't really motivated to do it because I just wanted to coach basketball. And so, but she gave me the opportunity to have a full-time job. So once I had that opportunity, I was like, all right, real estate thing's going to be on the back burner. And honestly, ever since, I haven't looked back, and I've had a full-time job ever since then. So I haven't needed to use it.
You and I have a very similar first page to our stories. I was not a good high school player, but I was like, I think I want to coach. And when I was in college, I had hooked up with my my old JV coach, he'd gotten a varsity job, and I, helped him out in the summers. And while I was in college, driving back and forth to help some games. And then my last 3 years in college, I coached seventh grade for 1 year. I coached ninth grade for 2 more years. And that's, you're still in college. You hook back up with Sam Dwayne there at Corona del Sol. You go coach junior college, then you get the job at McClintock. And this is all, pre 23. The biggest problem for me at that point was I thought I had all these good ideas in my head, and all these people that I'd worked for that I thought were good basketball people that I was just ultimately trying to be a carbon copy on some level, but I could never get the ideas in my head to my mouth to come out that made any sense. And so it ended up I yelled a lot because that was the only thing I knew how to do, because I didn't know how to teach at all. When you're at that age, let alone running your own program at 23, but when you're trying to coach junior college and you're coaching guys older than you, and you're 20, 21, and you're with your guy there, did the teaching part of the game come to you naturally, or was there sort of some time there where you kind of had to get your sea legs under you to try to be able to explain, to get all that smart stuff in your brain, to get it out and in a productive manner?
So I would say it was never a hard thing for me. I'm not trying to say I'm cool or anything like that, but like it's never been hard because I grew up watching my parents, right? So like I was saying earlier, my parents taught people 10, 15, 20 years older than them. And so I sat there every single night watching how they carry themselves, what they do. And like in my mind, I would mimic it. And, so like you said, I started at 3 years old doing that. I was watching that my whole life. So I really think, because people back then used to ask me all the time about the age difference. Guys were older than me. Like when I was 21 at Phoenix College, we had to do it on the team, was 6 years older than me. And, a guy that was like 2 years older than me. And so I think it's a lot about how you carry yourself. And if you have those leadership qualities, like for instance, we would go to a tournament to check in, when I was coaching my AU team, and I was, 18, 19, 20, and I'd go to check in, drop all the information off, and they'd say, no, we need your coach, not you. And I'd say, no, I am the coach. Oh, okay. And so my dad used to get mad because he used to tell me all the time, like, hey, like, or people would just call me a kid, coaching. My dad used to get mad because he's like, you know what, like, that's completely disrespectful to call you a kid. So like, it's completely disrespectful because there's people that are in the military sacrificing their lives at 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Like those are the real leaders. Like they're leading other men. Like they're the ones that, are like, I'm coaching basketball, at 18, 19, 20, 21. Like they're doing real life and death stuff and they're having to lead. So like me leading a basketball team at 18, 19, 20, 21, like that shouldn't be a big deal, because there's people doing far more important things than me. So, I've always respected that. And I always kind of looked at that and was like, man, you know what? Like if those guys can do it, like I should be able to lead a basketball team. So, yeah.
You're at McClintock. You're in one of the first articles written about you. There was the reporter said that you played your junior college for 2 years there, but he said he gave up his playing career prematurely without regrets. Obviously in the moment, and when you can be so nearsighted in a way in your early 20s when you're just hyper locked into what you're doing. Now, 15 years later, and I know that it might have changed your path and where you are today, so maybe the easy answer is no. Is there any part of you that's like, man, maybe I should have given it a little more of a run and just kind of played till the wheels fell off before I started this journey? Or are you wholly content with the way it's all come through for you?
I mean, obviously how things have worked out, my answer is yeah. I mean, I'm content with how everything worked out. Obviously hungry for more, but I want to make sure that we get this program to where it needs to be. But in terms of my path, like, I used to try and figure out like what the best way is and all that. So like one time when I was younger, I went online and charted out every single Division I coach and figured out what the step was before they got to Division I. So like I literally went through every school and I marked down, like, did they come from high school? Did they come from AAU? Did they come from junior college? What, like, how did they come from Division II? Like, how did they get their start? Were they a GA? Were they a manager? Like, so I charted it out to try and figure out, like, what is the best move? Like, I want to be a Division I coach. And so, like, what is the best move? So, during that time I was trying to figure it out, but there's no right or wrong path. The thing that I've figured out is that there's no right or wrong path. Like, of course you can do things to get yourself in the best position, but there's, everybody's got a different path. And so, like, when it came to me playing, I haven't played basketball, I guess, in like 18 years or something. And we're going on, I'm about to be 19 years. And I don't miss it. Like, playing, like, I don't, with the guys, like, I don't play. I don't go to a gym and play open gym, because once I was at peace with not playing, I knew that I needed to give 100% of me to coaching. And that's what I did. And I never looked back and never thought, man, maybe I should continue on playing. I'll never forget, like, the last meeting I had with my coach, who was an outstanding coach. We actually did one of his drills in practice today. He asked me if I wanted to continue on playing. And I said, no, I'm fine. Like, I fell in love with coaching and this is what I want to do. And so, I never looked back at it ever again.
February of 2010, third year at McClintock.
Mm-hmm.
You win a state championship, 73-71, beat Phoenix Sunny Slope. What do you remember about that day?
I remember the bus ride there. I remember everything about it. I remember the bus ride there. I remember being in a nice fancy arena, thinking, wow, like, we're here. I remember the tip. I remember everything about it. The thing I remember most is the joy and the happiness of all of our players after, and all of our coaches. For me, I was kind of like relieved, because I knew I had a really talented team. But I just remember being so excited and so happy for a bunch of guys who, could always look back on a state championship. I'll never forget, we had a celebration on the floor. Like, I'll never forget it, because I was just like, man, these guys, like, need this in their lives. They need some positivity in their lives, and nobody could ever take that away from those guys. And, they're winners till forever, and I'll never forget those guys. I'll never forget that team. It was a fun group, and I still talk to some of those guys now, and every now and then one of them will text me too. And so I owe a lot to those guys. I really do. Man, I love that team.
What can you tell me about the rocks you carried in your pocket that season?
The rocks I carried, I do a bunch of different things. The rocks help me keep grounded, and they said, always believe. And I'll never forget carrying around those rocks all season, because we had won a game and I had them in my pocket. So I just, stayed with it. I'm a very superstitious person too. I'm very superstitious. Like, I don't, there's a lot of things I do that's completely exhausting to get ready for a game, to be quite honest. Like, it is exhausting for me to get ready for a game. But I've always been like that. Even when I was growing up, fighting and stuff, like, I just had my, traditions or superstitions or whatever that I did every single time. And my routine, and it always helps me lock in and focus more. So the fact that I was carrying around those rocks, like, it just kind of helped me lock in and focus more, because it just put me on that path.
2011, you go to Howard Junior College there in Texas. After your 4-year run there at McClintock, coach with worked for Mark Adams, of course, now at Texas Tech. In terms of your growth and maybe getting out of the comfort zone, you'd been a Phoenix, Tempe guy, but now you're into Texas, and not that you're all the way across the country, but you're not home necessarily anymore. What was that uh, transition like for you in terms of just packing up and let's go to Texas and start this next step?
Yeah, it was definitely like I left my full-time job and just packed all my stuff up and moved into a dorm room. You know, I mean, that was a sacrifice I was willing to make and what I wanted to do. And I think like knowing I was going out there to work for Coach Adams, like was a big, I mean, that was like the biggest part of my decision. Because I knew what a great coach he was. I knew how much better I was going to get. I knew how much better I was going to be. I knew that, you know, I probably needed to start on my college path. You know, so yeah, I mean, it was a tough decision to just pack up and move. And there's not a lot of people who would probably do that, you know, just move away and all of a sudden you're living in a dorm room and, you know, like right next to the players and all that. But it was a sacrifice that I was willing to make because that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a college basketball coach, and who better to learn from than Coach Adams. Like you know, I mean, we've talked a lot about me being indebted to people. It's like, of course, like you know, Coach Adams taught me so many things. Like he sees the game in so many ways that other people don't. Notices the smallest details that people don't even think about. Like, you know, I just won a state championship and I was going to work for him. And I can't tell you how much I like learned. Like, I mean, there was so much stuff that I learned in my 2 years with him that I didn't even think about or realize was part of the game. And yeah, I mean, he's a tremendous coach. And I always knew I'm so, I know you didn't ask about this, but I'm so excited and happy for him that he got the chance that he's got, because I always knew when I was his assistant coach, I was like, this guy's like the best coach in the country, regardless of the level that we're at. And I was like, he
And
just
nobody
needs,
knows about him
yeah,
outside, you know.
yeah. And the JUCO people knew,
Sure.
but like, I don't know if they like really, really knew. Everybody really respected Coach Adams back then. But I'm just like sitting here going like, no, like he will be the best coach in the country if somebody gives him a chance and opportunity. And he proved it. And so that, like, I was just so happy for him. And I truly believe he's the best coach in the country. Like, I mean, he just, you know, I knew it from the time that I worked for him that he was the best coach in the country, regardless of, you know, all the famous people and all that. And man, he's a wonderful basketball coach.
2 years there, Portland State comes into your world. How do you end up in Portland? I mean, is there a relationship there, or is this just, hey, it's time, I need to start sending out 1,000 resumes, and they're the one who picked up the phone?
So I was perfectly happy in my role at Howard. Like I said, I was very fortunate at Howard because I had Coach Adams, and then another mentor of mine is Coach Earl Diddle, and he coached the women's team at Howard, and you know, coached at a bunch of different places. And so every single day, it was like I was in a coaching clinic, because I would listen to Coach Adams and Coach Diddle talk, and I just shut my mouth and listened and learned. And you know, which, you know, maybe not a lot of people would do after being a high school coach and head coach and all that, but like, just listening to those two men talk about everything really like took my whole thinking to another level. And so I was very, very fortunate to be in that spot and situation. I was perfectly happy being in that situation moving forward. Because I still think there's a lot of things that like I could have learned if I would have been around those two guys longer. But I had a mutual friend that was on the staff, Anthony Owens. So yeah, like he kind of approached me and said, hey man, like we might have a job at Portland State. And I always wanted to be a Division I coach. And then, so I got to know Coach Geving, and yeah. And then, you know, I mean, we had a really talented team at Howard for 2 years. And so and we were really successful recruiting. And to be honest, when I was at Howard, my dad got really sick. And so I had to go home for a little while during the summer, and I recruited from my parents' house in Phoenix, while I was an assistant coach at Howard. It was crazy. But so anyway, we had a really talented team, and I think that really helped me, just being around talented players. And so I got to know Coach Geving, and Coach Geving took a chance on me, and gave me the opportunity, and I threw everything in my car and just drove on up here.
It's probably cliche to you at this point, because I'm sure you've been asked about it umpteen times, about the 2003 Chevy Tahoe with no air conditioning and no heat and all of that, and eating on the floor and only eating pasta, and your comments from your press conference when you're introduced of, I don't eat breakfast, I want to be hungry, I'll wait till lunch. Is that ultimately, and I think the phrase you used was, you've been in the dirt, but is that ultimately just an extension of your martial arts background and just the discipline and being able to be comfortable in the uncomfortable?
It's definitely a mentality, right? And see, the thing is that, people always ask me, do I still drive the car? Do I still not eat breakfast and all that stuff, which is completely fine because, it is what it is. But the thing that that people might not have linked together is that, I didn't have the money to get my car fixed. I didn't have money to eat breakfast. So I chose, I was faced with what am I going to choose? Am I going to sit here and complain about how my life is and how hot it is driving in my car, or how cold it is, or that I'm hungry and I don't have money to eat and all this? Or am I just going to try and spin this in my own head from a mentality standpoint and just say, all right, bring it. All right, cool. I'm not going to eat breakfast today. Cool. It's going to make me hungry at practice then. Fine. I'm going to bring the energy at practice because I'm so freaking hungry, or is it all right, cool. How can I spin this in my head that I don't have AC in my car? Okay, cool. Let's see if I can do this. Let's just test myself. Let's see if I can drive in my car when it's 100 and whatever outside, and still be the positive person I need to be for my team. And so, yeah, and I learned that, and like you said, I learned that at an early age, is that you got to be disciplined, and it's all about a mentality about, are you going to complain or have excuses? My dad would never let me have an excuse. So am I going to complain and have excuses, or am I going to flip this in my mind? Am I going to be strong enough to be able to flip this in my mind and somehow, some crazy way, turn this thing into a positive? So some crazy way, I flipped it, in my own mind to make it a positive and test myself. And I refuse to complain or make excuses about my situation, no matter what it is. So, it's definitely a different way that, maybe people don't understand, but that's okay, because I got to be me.
4 years there at Portland State, and I guess it's the unfortunate part of the job for somebody that sometimes head coaches get fired, and your head coach Tyler Geving was fired after that 17 season. As the guy in the trenches with him, how, I guess the word is uncertainty about you and your future, and sort of a bit of a it feels like a rare case as a new coach comes in from the outside, but he keeps you. Oftentimes we're cleaning house and we're gonna start. Just if you can walk through those, the final month of Tyler's time there before then Barrett Peary comes in and keeps you on board.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, anytime you get let go as a staff, it's scary, right? You're like, dude, what's next? What am I gonna do? And you get to try and figure it out. And and like I said, I forever am thankful to Coach Geving for giving me the opportunity to come to Portland State. I wouldn't be the head coach of Portland State right now if it wasn't for Coach Geving. When I was going through that transition, I'm a very loyal person. And so he told me, hey, this business is tough. So if you have an opportunity to stay, you need to take it. You need to stay. And I really struggled with that in my mind. Like I said, I'm a very loyal person. And so, I really struggled with that for a while. But he just kept telling me, like, man, you need to stay if you can stay, because this business isn't easy. And if you have an opportunity to stay, you need to do it. And so, just him looking out for me like that, meant the world to me. And so, when I was here as the interim guy and they were trying to figure out, who they were going to have be the coach, and I owe a lot to our players back then, because, I wasn't going to be the guy deciding their playing time. Like and our guys knew that, but like our guys did everything possible, whether it was like going to study hall on time every day and, and doing all the right things and all that. And they did that for me. And so when Coach Peary got hired, it wasn't like he was walking into a situation that was like, just the guys were everywhere. People were transferring. I mean, it was just, the guys all hung tight and really respected me as an assistant coach back then. And I appreciate everything those guys did for me during that uncertain time. And when Coach Peary got the job, going back to my days of being an 18-year-old, 19-year-old guy coaching AAU basketball, Coach Peary is one of the first two people I met back when I was 18, 19. So if I never would have started that AAU team all the way back then, I would have never met Coach Peary. And so, because I had some players at the time that he was recruiting. And so we kind of got to know each other. And I knew him my whole coaching career. And, fortunately for me, he was great friends with Coach Adams, and I worked for Coach Adams, and Coach Adams vouched for me. And I, like I said, I had known Coach Peary for 15 years probably, or maybe longer. So it all just came together. And so it's a little unusual, but I was really lucky that, Portland State decided to hire Coach Peary, and forever indebted to him for keeping me here, because I wouldn't be the head coach if he didn't keep me. So, through the journey, I'm very grateful and thankful to all the people that have helped me. And I don't ever think that I did this like on my own or anything like that. Because it takes some help from people to get to where you're at. And so, all those people that helped me along the way from the time I was 3 to now, like I wouldn't be the person I am and wouldn't be in the position I am without any of them. So.
Well, I guess sort of the ultimate unusual would be, hey, we're going to let a head coach go, but then we're going to promote someone from his staff immediately to be a head coach. You're the interim, before Coach Peary gets there. Is there any part of your brain that's like, I want this job, I'm going to try to get this job? Or was that just a non-starter at that point for you?
No. I never, at the time, I never thought, like, I knew that wasn't my role. And I knew that's what the team didn't need that. The team didn't need me trying to get the job, because at the same time, I know how uncomfortable it can be, because I wanted to stay after Coach Geving told me to try and stay. I knew I wanted to stay. And so I knew that, like, whoever the new head coach was going to be, like, they weren't going to keep somebody who tried to just get their job. Right. So I knew that. I knew that, like, I wasn't, I'm very self-aware of like situations and things like that. So like, I knew like that I was not going to be like that. That was not me. And, probably the bigger thing is that's not what the team needed. Like, the team didn't need me at that time to be the head coach. Like that, that never even crossed my mind. And I don't even know, to be honest, I don't even know if I would have been comfortable doing that. Just because I was loyal to Coach Geving. So like, yeah, that never even crossed my mind.
After 1 year with Coach Peary, you're promoted to associate head coach. For the layman, what's the difference between assistant coach and an associate head coach, and what's the different stuff that's on your plate with that?
I think that when Coach Peary did that for me, I think it kind of just like, for me, it solidified some confidence as an assistant coach to know that your head coach believes and trusts you. So for me that it was, I mean, and people, like I'm, and it's not like I'm a title guy or anything like that, but it was good to know that Coach Peary really trusts me with a lot of different things here. And, it really helped my career for one. And so like, yeah, when I got the title switch, that was a big deal because, and he didn't have to do that, so yeah, it was a really big deal because it just solidified in my mind that like I was his guy. And I really, really, really appreciated it because like he gave me the opportunity to stay, and it just let me know that like, all right, man, like you are doing a good job, for the head coach, and he does trust you and he does believe in you. So yeah, it was awesome.
A little off the path, but I love this story, and I know how important family is for the sacrifices they have to make for you to, for any coach to chase their dreams. But uh, a COVID wedding at the Big Sky tournament, how much of a hard sell was that for your bride to, hey, let's get married on a basketball court?
Funny thing is, she had to convince me to do it.
Really?
Yeah, because like during the day, so we were hanging out, everything got canceled, right? And so going back to situations like my car, breakfast, all that stuff, like um our team, we won 5 games in a row, I think, maybe 6, I can't remember, but we were like the hottest team going into the tournament. We felt like we had a really good chance to win. No disrespect to any of those other teams that were really good, but like we felt like we had a chance. We knew we had a chance to win. And so when the news came down, our team took it really hard. We had a bunch of seniors on that team, and they took it really hard. So we were just kind of sitting around, and my uncle and my dad had brought up, because we were supposed to get married in May, and my uncle and dad brought up that like maybe we should just get married tonight. And we kind of just looked at each other like, what? So then we were talking about it, and it was like, all right, well, here's another opportunity to turn something completely awful and completely negative into a positive day. And so we looked at it like that. And then I was like, wait, like your mom and dad aren't here. So like this is a problem.
Right.
And so she convinced me that it was going to be okay. And we talked to her mom and dad, and they said it was okay. And so they threw it on like FaceTime or something like that. And my whole family's from Boise. So our team was there. My whole family was there. Like when we go to Boise for our conference tournament, my whole family goes, and we probably have more fans than any other team because my family's so awesome. So yeah, so we just threw the wedding together and called the conference, and they said, yeah, you guys can use the arena. Nothing's going on in there, obviously. And so my wife went and got like this white jumpsuit from across the street. And we had one of our parents of a kid on our team went and got some flowers. And my cousin went and got my ring from Dick's Sporting Goods that I still wear. It's the best ring ever. I highly recommend the rubber rings if you're a basketball coach. And so yeah, we just threw it all together within a matter of a couple hours. And yeah, we went out there and played some music, and my cousin showed up and did the wedding. And yeah, it was great. Like it was a life memory. And not everybody gets that opportunity and chance to do something like that. And my wife's pretty cool. Like, she's great. And she totally gets it.
You're going to be renewing your vows somewhere at some point soon, right?
Yeah, probably. I mean, we still want to have the reception and stuff like that.
There you go. Just out on the party.
We went to a Chinese restaurant after for which is a great Chinese restaurant in Boise, by the way. But like we went to a Chinese restaurant after, and like just kind of hung out that night. It was an interesting reception, but
I'm sure it was. Well, you're I guess the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon here. Everybody knows everybody. 2021, Coach Peary leaves to Texas Tech to work for Mark Adams again, and now the door is open for you to take over this program. How was the interview process for you? And I guess was this your first head coaching interview, or had you slid some other ones there in the past?
Division I?
Division I, yes.
Yeah, it was my first one. because you know what, like, I always just want, like, after being here, I wanted to be the coach at Portland State. And that was like, that was the thing that I wanted to do. So the interview process, was completely fair. Like, I totally get having to go through all of that. And, part of the thing I told them was that, like, you know, I want to be the coach at Portland State, but like, I didn't take the interview as like, oh yeah, like I deserve to be the coach at Portland State. And, or like, this is why I want to do the interview. I just said, hey, like, I've worked here for 8 years, not to become the coach at Portland State, but to have the opportunity to tell somebody why I should be the coach at Portland State. There's a big difference. There's a big difference in mentality with that. And so that's, I felt like I worked here for 8 years to be able to get an interview, not to get the job, but to get the interview. And that's kind of how I approached it. I mean, I approached it like that. To be honest, it was like a fun process to go through. I mean, obviously, it's like a little bit you get nervous and stuff, but like, it was a fun process to go through because it gave me a chance to compete for my dream, and that's all I wanted. I just wanted a chance. And, obviously it worked out great.
With it being the first interview for you at that level, was it calming at all? Just at least looking in that room and it's familiar faces, you're not halfway across the country just talking to perfect strangers you're trying to quickly build a relationship with.
Yes and no. It was a little weird to talk about yourself in front of people you see every day, but I felt like I needed to let them know, like, the little things about myself that they might not know, because you see them every day and you pass by them every day and you say, hey, how you doing? Oh, you good? Yeah. Okay, great. Like, you know what I mean? You might have a meeting with them every so often. So, it was a little awkward to have like an interview, but like I said, I just felt like, I need to distinguish myself from being the guy that they just pass in the hall every day and who I actually am. So, but yeah, I'm a very competitive person. And so I just took it as, this is a competition and here we go.
When you get the call that it's your job, who's your first phone call to?
Fortunately enough for me, when I got the call, my wife and my mom and dad were all there listening. And so, yeah, for them to be there in the room while I got the call, like, I felt like I was like a Arizona Cardinals first round draft pick. You know what I mean? Like, you get the call and you're like, oh yeah, you got all these people around you and stuff. But the most important people, in my life were all right there, and we could all share that moment together. So it was awesome.
What do you remember about press conference day?
No,
because I watched it and you looked you looked like your insides were going about 500 miles an hour.
I mean, to be honest, like, going into the press conference, I decided, like, I'm going to be me, right? Like, I have to be authentic and real. Like, this is who I am. Now, obviously I've been an assistant for 8 years and nobody gave a damn about anything I've said in the last 8 years, or even before that, 10 years, whatever. Like, no one cared what the assistant coach had to say. So that's the one thing, is I didn't realize that people were actually going to even care what I had to say. But it was important for me because I had it was an opportunity for me to finally show people who I am, and I'm not just like, the guy on the side who just like has this like fake energy, so but to say I wasn't nervous or anything, because I was just like, all right, cool, like, let's let it roll, man. Like, yeah, you're gonna be you, and yeah, you might say some things that people go, wow, that's kind of crazy, but like, hey, it's me. Like, I'm sorry if you don't like it, but like, I gotta be me, man. Like, I'm not gonna be some fake dude. And and I've, no offense to anybody, any other coaches, but like, I've heard just like the press conferences that just, everybody says the same thing, and maybe that's exactly who they are, but that's not me. Like, you know, so I wasn't about to just stand up there and say the same exact things that everybody else says. And, you know, I'm different, and I embrace that I'm different. So yeah, yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Well, last question for you. For a young guy that wants to get into this profession and someday wants to lead their own program on the Division I level, there's 1,000 different ways to get there, and certainly yours is one of the more unique paths that you've taken. But what advice would you give to that young guy that ultimately wants to be a Division I head coach?
I'd say, you know, just going through my journey, and I can only speak to my journey. Everybody's journey is different. And that's one thing that everybody's got to understand, is that like everybody's journey is different. The more things you can do, the more valuable you become. Because on a staff, like, people have different roles, and the more roles that you can do, the better you're going to be, from washing laundry to doing scouting reports and recruiting. And I mean, the whole thing, you know, housing, all that. Like, you know, the more things you can do, the more valuable you become. And I'd say the biggest thing is work hard in your own job, be great in your own job, and somebody will notice. And don't complain about your situation. You know, and one of the biggest things too is, don't compare yourself to other people, and don't compare yourself to your situation to somebody else's situation. Why did they get that job? And it's just worry about doing your own job. And for me, it worked out. Like, I just worried about doing my own job, and tried to do the best possible job I could for all the head coaches that I worked for. And that was the mentality that I had. I never once looked at somebody and said, man, like, why is that guy got that job? Because that happens a lot. Like, it happens a lot. People are always complaining about stuff like that. And it doesn't do you any good, you know. It just turns people bitter and upset. And like I said, it doesn't do you any good. Just be great at your own job, and be thankful that you have a job, and be thankful that you have a head coach that believes in you. And so, you know, the rest will work itself out how it's supposed to work out. But, you know, you just got to be ready for anything.